Here is Victor Ming Mei's previous house. This is the one we are replacing. As you can see, it is a split level. They have an upstairs, a downstairs, and a ramp. You can also see they have a domed cat box over there for hiding. Now, this house has served us really well. It's still in decent condition, other than being a little used. But we have to change houses because the ducks are getting old and it's getting harder and harder for them to get up that ramp without slipping. We're also concerned about them standing up at the top and jumping down to the bottom. We don't want them to hurt their hips. So we are making them a brand new house and moving them to the other side of our front room. So this is where we are moving the ducks. They're actually going to be right by the windows. So we live in a garden unit, so we're actually halfway below ground. So it'll be nice for the ducks to get a little bit more natural light. Whenever we make a duck house, we always start with a piece of base furniture from IKEA. They're not very expensive and they're definitely worth it. They've made pretty much every house the ducks have lived in since they were about 2. This particular one is just a basic wardrobe. It is just under 4 by 8 feet. And it's black, and Alex went ahead and assembled it already. Just easy assembly. Just the 4 walls, the back, and the bottom. Now the bottom of IKEA furniture is not finished. It has that little plate there because it's meant to be laying on that side. That's meant to be the bottom. But since we are laying the wardrobe down a different way, we went ahead and we put it up against the wall so that way you don't see the kind of yucky unfinished edge. What we also did was we purchased 2 packs of shelves, shelving units. That's what you see over here. This one is actually made for a wardrobe that's not as deep, but the same width. That's why it's not quite as wide as this whole wardrobe is deep. And what it does here, these shelves attach by sitting on top of these little inserts here in the hole. So instead of the shelf going vertical, if the wardrobe was standing up, instead, we've turned it into a little bit of a roof here on the end of the house. So it's literally just sitting in there. You can easily pick it up. It's just sitting right on top there. What we like to do is we like to put the food and water underneath. And we do that just because ducks are very messy eaters. And they will make a big mess if their water area is not covered. So we're actually going to make this particular cover a little longer, which we'll get to later. In there right now is also all of our tools and our stick-on tiles. What we did with the other 2 shelving units is we put one of the shelves here up just to that first set of holes along the edge. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer of a picture of it. I'm not sure how well it's coming out. But IKEA furniture had these nifty little pre-drilled holes. So what we did is we went ahead and just put that shelf in at that first set of holes. What that does is it gives the ducks a little space to crawl in underneath while still giving them a step. Our ducks really like to look out of their house and be able to see us and to talk to us and even to watch the bunny. You can see some of the bunny's toys are right over there. So with this ramp, we made it out of another shelf. We just went ahead and put a little piece in so it doesn't fall. So they're only going about 10 inches off the ground. With bedding, if they do decide to jump off, they're only going to be moving about 8 inches rather than about 2.5 feet from their old house. And the ramp will still give them easy access to go up and go down so they're not forced to climb or forced to jump. I highly recommend that you tile everything. We've made the mistake before of making a duck house and we didn't tile the bottom thinking it didn't need it. The bottom only lasted a couple of months before it started to warp and it started to wear through. So you should definitely tile whatever you're going to have your indoor ducks in. So what we do, we just go to Home Depot and we buy whatever tile happens to be the cheapest. We actually have 2 different color tiles this time. We have some left over from last time and we got some new ones. We recommend that you tile the entire bottom of the wardrobe as well as up the sides. You should be able to put 2 tiles up the sides. Now with this one, it's going to be a little trickier because we're going to have to make sure we go around the holes over here by the shelf. But that'll just be a little bit of some tricky cutting. So you should definitely go as far up as possible. Usually if you do 2 tiles on this size of a wardrobe, they come to about right here. The top holes you don't really have to worry about getting wet or getting anything in there. Just because it's so high up, it very rarely gets anything in there. If you want to fill them with a little bit of wood putty, you can definitely do that, though it's not really necessary. We also tile the underside of the roof. And that's because stuff does splatter, and it will get dirty underneath there, and you need to be able to clean it. Well, this surface seems nice and smooth, it will get really gunky and it can get very hard to clean. Tiles are much easier to clean. You can even use a Swiffer when cleaning. We also are going to be tiling the ramp and placing some anti-skid tape on there for them. We also are going to be tiling their little upstairs area just to make sure everything lasts longer. The house they currently live in is about 2 years old and it's still in great condition. It's just a little too high and potentially dangerous for our ever older getting ducks here. Victor and Ming Mei at this point in time are about 5.5, and we just want to avoid injuries wherever we can. If you are tiling, I recommend just cheap peel and stick. That works out really well. You don't have to use any harsh glues. And we do recommend that you do caulk all the edges. We actually use a caulk tape that's meant to go around a bathtub. And that looks a little nicer. And it also is much easier to apply. Caulk, if you're not a contractor and you're not good at applying caulk, caulk can be very messy, and depending on what kind of bedding you use, the bedding can stick to the rubber silicone feeling of the caulk. And what we have here is something I highly recommend you get. It is just an quick and easy tile cutter. These are kind of expensive. They're around $50 a piece, but they are going to make cutting the tiles so much easier. This wardrobe is actually not fully 4x8. It's a little bit under, so the tiles are not going to fit perfectly. Some tiles will have to be cut in order to fit into the wardrobe properly. Cutting by hand, even with a ruler and a carpenter's knife, gets very tiresome, and you can easily end up cutting crooked. And in order to save money, you actually got to spend a little bit of money, and then you'll save money by being able to have more useful pieces of tile. Those small pieces you end up cutting off work really well on other parts of the house, like the roof here. So what we do with these tile cutters is we actually purchase them, go ahead and use them, and then we put them back in the box and bring them on back. It's kind of like renting it, I guess. But you can keep it if you are planning on doing any other tiling. It's also a good thing to keep around, in case you do have the need to make a new or another duck pen, because this thing will save you so much time that it's totally worth it. So this is the beginning steps. Next will be to actually go ahead and tile the whole thing and caulk it, and we will continue our video once we've made some progress to show you guys how we do our house.